to the Rokcast, everyone. I'm Travis Hobbs. Today's episode is going to be a little different. If you're listening to this, just know that we are going to have like a YouTube video that hopefully you can follow along and it'll make a little better sense. I will do my best to try to explain it over audio. However, it might be easier to watch it on video. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're probably wondering what is going on. Anyways, this is the Rokcast podcast. I'm going to be talking a little bit about glassing and glassing efficiently and just some tips and suggestions and some thoughts we've had. And we've had a bunch of feedback about different podcasts and things that I've said, and I should have probably did a better job explaining. However, we'll jump into this. So this started off, I think the first time on the podcast we mentioned it was me and Robbie were hunting late season deer. And Robbie had mentioned that he's going to switch over to a straight spotting scope. And he was just it was proven to him that it is super efficient and that an angled spotting scope does indeed suck. I'm very opinionated about that. I've had very serious conversations with a lot of people and switch them over. And so I hope by doing this will kind of help you understand why I'm so firm in my belief about using straight spotting scopes for the Western big game hunter. I don't see this talked about a whole lot. In fact, I've never really seen it mentioned. And some of the problems with angled spotting scopes. But anyways, we'll get into it, and you can argue, and I'm sure there will be plenty of people that will argue to the day they die, but that's their deal, and I'm pretty convinced that this is the way to go. Also going to talk about binoculars, like budgets, like what should you buy? If you only could have one binocular, if you have $1,000 budget, I'll jump into a few things.
The Rokcast is powered by OnxHunt, the #1 GPS app in the industry. Stay tuned for a Rokcast promo code.
Anyways, I think the biggest thing is going to be the straight versus angled spotting scope. This comes up a lot, I think, especially for newer hunters, and people kind of get used to one way or the other. And to be 100% fair, I was the angled spotting scope guy. In fact, I was convinced that it was the way to go, that it was more comfortable, yada, yada, yada. And as I got more serious about 15 years ago, I finally did see the light. So I'm hoping I can show you guys the light on why I think it's important to not use an angled spotting scope, use straight, and to be more efficient with your glassing system. So the first thing to start off, and this brought up a lot of questions on a recent podcast I had talked about, I think it was with Dione, about using binoculars most of the time. So I think a mistake that I see a lot of hunters make is they will use a spotting scope for an hour, 30 minutes, whatever it is, never going back to binoculars. So they're looking at this very narrow, focused field, when the best thing you can do is look at like a hillside. You want to cover numbers. To find big deer, you've got to cover numbers. However you get it done, whether it's scouting, hunting, you've got to look at all of the deer. You can't get focused in on 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of the deer and then spend all 30 minutes looking at them while there was other deer out that you totally missed. So it's hard to explain, but I hope this is going to make and resonate a little bit. So using binoculars more. Let's just start off typical morning. I'm going to be there before it's light enough to see. So at least a half hour before the sun comes up, at least, and going to be trying to be there like 40 minutes before the sunlight comes up. I really think it's important to be 100% focus sitting there right where you want to be, and glass as much as you can in that prime time, because that first half hour of light is the most crucial time of light to make sure you are being as efficient as possible and looking at all of the deer you can. So typical day, I'm going to set up, whether maybe I packed a chair in, maybe I got a little roll-up chair, maybe it's out the truck window, it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to set up with binoculars, and usually I'm going to go with 10s. That's usually what I start with. I usually start with 10 power binoculars, got a giant field of view, and I'm going to start looking at the places that I think are going to hold deer. As I start finding deer, maybe I can verify not a shooter buck. Usually what happens is it's a buck, and I'll see antlers and I'll be like, okay, what is it? So I need something higher power. So shook my binoculars off the tripod, throw the spotting scope on. Okay, I'm going to verify the deer's not what I'm after. I am not going to spend more than 2 seconds. Maybe it takes me a minute to decide whether I want to shoot him or not. And I'm going right back to glassing. I'm going to cover the numbers. That way I am seeing more deer. That is how you get the deer count higher, is to be efficient, going back and forth. If you are not using binoculars on a tripod and you're watching this, I don't even know where to start with you, other than you are going about it completely wrong. If you are not using a tripod to glass, you're missing out on so much. The point, you're probably not going to take much away from this. I highly recommend it. Get a good system that's efficient, that you can pop on and off. Super easy. I personally like Outdoorsman's a whole bunch. They're American made. Their products are rock solid. They last forever. They're just a really good product. The coolest part too, they make everything. So whether you want to glass out the window, this is all going to just work. Same head. You want to be on a tripod, it doesn't matter. It's very, very efficient. I'm a big, giant fan of Outdoorsman's. I've been using them for years. And their stuff, it's built by hunters. I really don't like to give my money to a company that probably hates our lifestyle, probably supports anti-hunting organizations, everything else. Outdoorsman's not that company. They support hunters. They are hunters. I think it's very important we give our money to them. So that's my rant with Outdoorsman's. I really like them. I also really like the fact they still build a lever lock tripod. I absolutely hate twist lock tripods. As time goes on, and what I'm talking about is the little levers, the twists. There's different brands, but I'm a big fan of lever lock tripods. I just know that they're solid. Everything works. But anyways, that's just that rant. So I'll leave it at that. So glassing, jumping all over. You're going to be using your binoculars. Going to be nice and comfortable, head in a good neutral position. Find a deer. Back and forth. It literally takes seconds. If you tune your base plates right, and I'll do a video on this because I think it's worth going into depth. When I put my spotting scope on, it should be like if I centered a deer in my binoculars, put my spotting scope on, that deer should be still in the exact center. So if he's in heavy brush, whatever, I'm on him. I'm not messing with anything. I'm not making any adjustments. I'm on the deer. Boom, I'm off the deer. Back to glassing. It's very important. The problem with an angled spotting scope. So I'm going to put my binoculars back on. Everything's lined up. Find a deer. Angled spotting scope. Does anybody see the problem? I cannot look through the objective of that angled spotting scope. So right now, it was all lined up for my eyes, for binoculars. The eyepiece is literally even with the top of my forehead. So I'm going to have to come out from behind the spotting scope to look, or I'm going to have to adjust this tripod in some way, whether it's drop the center post, drop legs, maybe widen them out, whatever you're going to do. I'm either moving or I'm messing with the tripod. I'm manipulating the tripod in some way. When you do that, you're going to have to re-find the deer. So in this case, I dropped the center post. I'm still not really good, but I'm going to have to manipulate the tripod, re-find that deer. That could take, maybe you're really, really efficient, but it's still going to take you 10 seconds. If you got a straight spotting scope, it's 2 seconds and you're on to deer. Times that by 50, 60, whatever times of doing that. How much time did you waste during prime time, and how many did you miss a giant buck because of it? I am convinced that this happens. The other thing that I see guys do is if they're using an angled spotting scope, they will get lazy and they'll stop transitioning between binoculars and spotting scope. They'll end up hand holding their binoculars, whatever they do, or they're just not going to go back and forth. Maybe they'll get super serious and just look for 25 minutes with a spotting scope when you should be going. And it's okay to look, like if there's some piece of country that needs a good look it over, but keep going back and forth through binoculars. Because if there are deer on their feet, and if there's a lot of deer on their feet, it's very, very important to be looking at a big field of view, looking at a lot of country so you can spot those deer that are standing. I think that's very important.
OnxHunt is the #1 GPS app in the industry. I guarantee you won't spend a Benjamin on something you use more than OnxHunt Elite. Every hunt, every planning session, every gear purchase. Besides the best in online mapping tools, with OnxHunt Elite, you have access to application and draw odds tools, exclusive pro deals for leading industry gear, educational resources for all species, exclusive mapping and scouting tools, and last but not least, access to eMap coverage nationwide and now Canada. OnxHunt is the hunt app trusted by millions. OnxHunt Elite will make you more successful on your next hunt. So if you're ready to make the jump, head on over to OnxHunt and try it for free for 7 days, or go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use the code Rokcast for 20% off on your new OnxHunt Elite membership.
The other thing that I was just gonna quickly mention about that, as the day progresses and deer are bedding down, I will use a spotting scope more and more as the day gets into the middle part of the day. So as I'm watching deer or noticing deer heading to trees, heading to cover, bedding, I'm going to start using a spotting scope more and more to pick apart that stuff. However, I will never be on a spotting scope for more than 5-10 minutes, scanning. I will always stop with the spotting scope, take it off, put my binoculars up, and just quickly cover everything. Make sure I'm not missing any deer that are up and out moving. You never know when they're going to get up, and then I'll go back to the spotting scope. So I'm always transitioning. Doesn't matter the time of day. Typically on a normal day. So let's just say I'm glassing the morning till, let's say, noon. I bet I will transition between binoculars and spotting scope. I would bet at least a couple hundred times throughout a day. Just in the first little bit in the morning, it can be crazy. And sometimes it's not even for sure a deer. Sometimes I see something in my binoculars. I'm like, is that a deer? And then I verify with a spotting scope. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And then back and forth. It always just continues. But use binoculars as much as you possibly can. That might sound a little foreign to people. They're thinking, oh, more power. Well, more power, honestly, a lot of times isn't the way to spot deer. Sometimes it's less power. Sometimes it does take, so this is a twin set of spotters. This is Adam's adapter mounted with two Swarovskis. STCs, the compact series. So this is like basically a 17 by 40 power binocular. Sometimes I am glassing with this on 35 power, and I'm looking a long ways away. But no matter what, I'm still going back and forth. I'm always implementing binoculars. I love 15. These new 14s are just unbelievable. Giant field of view. Really like them. I just know that it's very important to keep going back and forth and make sure you're looking at all of the deer country often. With a pair of binoculars, you're going to see deer up moving. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes people make. So this question comes up on the podcast all the time. People will ask, if you had the money for one pair of binoculars, what are you going to buy? So me personally, I would buy 10s for sure. Like, that's not even a question. I would not mess with 12s. I have went down the 12 route. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the 12s. I just don't think I can handhold them. Hunting deer in the style I do, I am missing things with 12s. They're just zoomed up too much. They're too shaky. I'm not getting that crisp field of view, especially, in heavy timber, sneaking through deer country. Anytime you're in deer country, you should be constantly glassing. And I think that's another mistake people make too, is as you're moving through deer country, I see so many guys they're hiking, and they're just hiking like they're on a mission. They might walk a mile and not pull out their binoculars. That is not me. I pull out my binoculars hundreds of times, put them back in the case, out of the case, looking at anything that I might see, or just looking at stuff that I just want to know, is there a deer in there? It looks like deer country. I'm going with a pair of 10s. I think 8s, there's a really good argument to go with 8s. Since the NL 10s come out, I don't think so. The field of view of the 10 NLs is just unbelievable. It's like looking through an old pair of 8s. The optical quality, clarity, field of view, everything is just surpassed. Like, I think it's the way to go. Let's see. The other question that comes up, range finding binoculars. So I have a very serious, how do I put this? I think that it is more important to have the best quality of glass you can buy than have a rangefinder built into your binocular. I run on my chest marsupial gear. I'm a big fan of their stuff. My rangefinder is right off the side of my binocular case at all times. It takes me 2 seconds to get it out, like literally seconds. I spend more time glassing and looking for deer. I want the best optics I can get. I think that's where the edge gets pushed over. How often am I shooting a deer? Well, if it could be maybe a couple times a season, I will use that rangefinder off the side. I have no trouble with that. So I use my binoculars for months and months out of the season. Through scouting season, through hunting season, day in, day out, I want the best quality I can get. I'm not going to give up quality, and you do give up quality. Nothing comes close. The Swarovski EL range does not come close to the NLs. Like, it's not even close. So I want the best optical quality I can have. I want to be looking through them all the time. That's my take on range finding binoculars. Robbie disagrees with me, and that's okay. There's different methods and different ways people go about it. I'm not giving up. Personally, I'm not giving up optical quality to have a range finding binocular. Just won't do it. Let's see. BTX. I'm not a fan of the BTX. I don't like angled spotting scopes for the reasons I showed you. I'm not a fan. I really do love the twin spotting scope setups. Adams Adapters makes these adapters for multiple different spotting scopes, some of the Kowas, big Swarovskis, everything. You can get them. I really love this dual compact setup. I am a giant fan. I really like it. There are some downsides. Your buddies, like you set these for your eyes. Your buddy's not going to be able to look through and see with any optical clarity because you're actually going to set them up with your pupillary distance. So the distance between your two pupils, and you got to do some lining up. It's not that complicated. He's got a really cool system the way he does it. But I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up having the BTX is a cool system, but I am not going to give up that angle. I'm not going to use an angled system. I'm just not going to. I had one, tried to use it for a while, and just for all the reasons that I've talked about, I just hate it. And this has fixed a lot of those problems for me. What else was I going to mention? So, this is kind of a cool system. So Outdoorsman's recently come out with this cool little system. So this is just an optics holder. So if you're standing up on a tripod, you don't want to, or maybe there's a big cliff off to the side. You don't want to set your spotting scope down. This will hold it, keep it out of the snow. I'm pretty excited about that. I've been using it for, I think, about a month now. Pretty excited about it. I really do like it. Budget binoculars. So we'll talk about this. This is going to get people all the time ask us, I have $1,000. Which binoculars would you buy? Well, the answer for me is very, very simple. I am not a fan of buying mid-tier binoculars that you will walk out of the store and literally lose 50% of their street value the minute you walk out. So what I'm saying is you go in and buy a set of Leopold's, Vortex. I could throw all of those mid-tier binoculars. You walk into a store, the second you walk out, those dropped in value 50%, I would say, roughly. One thing that will not drop in value is Swarovski optics. I have owned so many different sets. This was actually the very first set of Swarovskis I have ever owned. I bought these used in 2004. $800.
You pursue them, you cherish them, and now it's time to protect them. This is the Mule Deer Foundation. Our mission is the conservation of mule deer, black-tailed deer, and their habitats, the heart and soul of the West. Join the herd today and help us preserve the legacy of these majestic creatures for generations to come. Your membership supports essential conservation projects, research initiatives, and educational programs that secure a future for mule deer and black-tailed deer. Our deer, our heritage, our responsibility. Don't just witness their journey, be a part of it. Join the herd. Together, we can make a difference. Visit muledeer.org today.
These binoculars, I would put them up against any of those mid-tier glass. These are the SLC 10x42s. Super clear. They're still a really good set of binoculars. In fact, I still use them all the time. Mostly like in the truck. My wife uses them, whatever. They're still a really good quality set of binoculars. The coolest part is 20 years later, I could make money off these binoculars, like guaranteed. They'd sell for $1,000. They're super clean, been cleaned a couple times by Swarovski. The glass has been refurbished at no cost to me. I think if I was going to buy, if I had $1,000, this is probably something I would look at. I would look at a pair of SLCs. They're going to hold their value for a long time. I have never in my life, I've never seen those go for less than $800. I mean, still right now today on Rockslide, there's probably a set of 10x42 SLCs for more than that. I think when you buy good quality optics that has a really good name, and there's a reason they have a good name, that value is going to stay there for a long time. It's going to really hold high. And as time goes on and inflation goes up and these things just cost more to build, I think it's a really good, smart, like it's like buying an heirloom product. Like they last forever. They're lifetime products. Unless you're like me and you're super addicted and you always want to mess with the latest and greatest. But even still, SLCs. So I think that is my third. It is my third set of 15x56 SLCs. I had the original, the old ones. They were probably made, I bought them used back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Upgraded them, and then upgraded them again. My buddy ended up wanting them. I never lost $1. Everything I ever got, I bought these 2 years ago. Could probably sell them for exactly what I paid for them. The other thing is, and I just want to throw a shout out to these guys. There are Swarovski dealers that are taking advantage of people. There are some really good deals to be had. I mentioned this in another video that maybe you've seen. I was actually talking about these NL 14x52s. But if you're in the market for Swarovski optics, actually Swarovski Vortex Night Force scopes, give my buddies at Kent's Marketplace in Tremont in Utah. So it's Kent's Optics in Tremont in Utah. They ship all over. If you find a better price on Swarovski than those guys, let me know about it. I do not think you will be able to beat it. They're the best. They're awesome to deal with. I've dealt with Dave for a long time, a really long time, and he's always taken really good care of me. I'm not getting paid to say any of this. This is just a buddy that has really helped me out over the course of my life and really saved me money on optics. And I'm talking significant savings. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Pretty much every piece of glass you're looking at here has come from him, and I can't say enough about him. So check those guys out. Outdoorsman, I just want to throw them a shout out. An American-made company. It's damn tough to find them like that anymore. There's just not American-made companies that are built by hunters, and I think that's something of value. So with that, if you guys have any more questions on optics, I will do that video on tuning. I don't know when I'll get to it, but I'll run a video on how I tune, like how I'm locking my threads in using Thread Locker and some other stuff. I'll go over all of that stuff. So hopefully that makes sense. Thank you guys.
With the help of sportsmen and women and concerned citizens, we can defeat the hunting bans here in Colorado. Go to SaveTheHuntColorado.com. And thanks for listening.